Shalom and shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Trumpet's Call. I'm Maria. I pray that you are holding on to faith, amunah, and holding on to hope during these times. Thank you for joining me once again for another video on the channel. Today's video will be a follow-up from our Shabbat lesson, and we're going to be taking a little bit of a deep dive into some science regarding the things that are coming, regarding the seals, the trumpets, and the bowl judgments of the book of Revelations. So we're going to begin with a little bit of a science lesson. And I pray that you will join me on next Shabbat, Yahuah willing, as we continue our discussion of the trumpet judgments and move into the vials and the bowls. And now, a little science lesson. As we continue our discussion on the end of days and the seals, the trumpets, and the bowl judgments of Revelation, it becomes necessary to look a little into the science of the matter. We know that our Heavenly Father is creator and ruler over all. And the way that the earth and indeed the universe has been structured is modeled after the nature and the character of our Father. We can learn much about His character, His personality, His power, and His might through the study of electromagnetism. And it is through the study of electromagnetism that will help us to better picture the events that are in store for us and the world in the coming days, weeks, months, and years. The whole world, as we know it, is comprised of electricity and magnetism, and the two work together to form a mighty force in the world. Every transfer of power, of energy, and the movement associated with it creates a magnetic field. And indeed, the earth has its own magnetic field. And this magnetic field that forms around the earth offers protection for the earth from the onslaught of solar wind and charged particles from the sun. Not only does the earth have a magnetic field, but all that is in the solar system, all that is in the space and the stars, contains a magnetic field. You and I contain a magnetic field. We are electrical beings, and the Father is the quintessence of electromagnetism. He upholds all things by the word of His power. He is powerful and electric. And all those who humble themselves before Him can be drawn to Him like a magnet. But those who will not humble themselves, those who are prideful, He will repel or rebuff. They will not be a part of His kingdom. He will spew them out of His mouth.
Earth itself is a huge magnet. This animation depicts Earth's magnetic field lines as viewed from outer space. This is Earth's magnetosphere. Its magnetic field is similar to that of a bar magnet. But you'll notice that the field lines far away from Earth, they bend away. This is due to the ionized solar wind from the sun that encounters Earth. As we discuss elsewhere, Earth's magnetosphere acts as a shield, protecting us from this energetic solar wind. The source of Earth's magnetism is still not completely understood. Most investigators, however, attribute the field to convection currents within Earth's interior. What we do know is that the direction and strength of Earth's magnetic field changes over time. Let's explore this. First, if you hold a compass at either Earth's north or south magnetic pole, the needle would face vertically, straight up and down. Earth's magnetic pole is located where the magnetic field lines are perpendicular to Earth's surface. Because of this, the magnetic poles are not necessarily fixed at the same location. We find that the magnetic poles tend to wander. Here's a map showing the location of the northern magnetic pole over the past few centuries. As of 2020, the Earth's magnetic pole in the northern hemisphere is slowly moving on a path from Arctic Canada to northern Siberia.
The Earth itself is like a giant magnet, a giant bar magnet, with two poles, a north pole and a south pole. The Earth actually has two poles. The Earth has a geographic pole and a magnetic pole, north and south. As we've learned in this video, the North Pole and the South Pole, the magnetic pole that is, typically has what is referred to as magnetic excursions, where it shifts here or there, short distances, and it does not typically stay in the same place. But in the midst of a magnetic reversal, where the poles flip or reverse, where the North Pole becomes the South Pole and the South Pole becomes the North Pole, magnetically speaking, what we'll see is the excursion becoming farther and farther and farther, as we've seen in this video. The North Pole, which was centered somewhere around Ellesmere Island in Canada, is now well on its way toward Siberia in Russia. And the southern magnetic pole, which was centered around Antarctica, is now heading toward the Indian Ocean. The Earth is in the midst of a magnetic pole reversal, or a pole flip. And the ramifications of that tie in to the prophecies given in the book of Revelation.
Did you know that Earth has two North Poles? There's the geographic North Pole, which never changes, and there's the magnetic North Pole, which is always on the move. And right now, it's moving faster than usual. Over the last 150 years, the magnetic North Pole has casually wandered 685 miles across northern Canada. But right now, it's racing 25 miles a year to the northwest. This could be a sign that we're about to experience something humans have never witnessed before: a magnetic polar flip. And when this happens, it could affect much more than just your compass. But sometimes, Earth doesn't always just have a single magnetic north and south pole. Evidence suggests that for hundreds to thousands of years at a time, our planet has had 4, 6, and even 8 poles at a time. This is what has happened when the magnetic poles flipped in the past. And when it happens again, it won't be good news for humans. Now you might think that 8 poles must be better than 2, but the reality is that multiple magnetic fields would fight each other. This could weaken Earth's protective magnetic field by up to 90% during a polar flip. Earth's magnetic field is what shields us from harmful space radiation, which can damage cells, cause cancer, and fry electronic circuits and electrical grids. With a weaker field in place, some scientists think this could expose planes to higher levels of radiation, making flights less safe. This could also disrupt the internal compass in many animals, which use the magnetic field for navigation. Even more extreme, it could make certain places on the planet too dangerous to live. We know this because we're already seeing a glimpse of this in an area called the South Atlantic Anomaly. Turns out, the direction of a portion of the magnetic field deep beneath this area has already flipped. And scientists say that's one reason why the field has been steadily weakening since 1840. As a result, the Hubble Space Telescope and other satellites often shut down their sensitive electronics as they pass over the area. And astronauts on the International Space Station report seeing a higher number of bright flashes of light in their vision, thought to be caused by high-energy cosmic rays that the weaker field can't hold back. Since experts started measuring the anomaly a few decades ago, it has grown in size and now covers a fifth of Earth's surface, with no signs of shrinking anytime soon. This is so extreme that it could be a sign we're on the brink of a polar flip, or we may already be in the midst of one. It's frightening to even imagine the devastation a storm would bring to an Earth with a magnetic field only 10% as strong as it is now.
So you may ask yourself, well, what's the big deal? If Earth typically experiences polar flips from time to time, where the north magnetic pole becomes the southern magnetic pole, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that when these poles shift, typically there's a weakening of the magnetic field as these poles flip from north to south and or from south to north. And as the magnetic pole moves and the magnetic field weakens, any CME, coronal mass ejection, or any solar flare, or solar particles, or proton storms, or geomagnetic storms that may come from the sun will have a much more serious effect on the Earth in the absence of a strong magnetic field protecting it from the sun. These things go together because not only is the Earth in the midst of a magnetic reversal, but the sun itself is in the midst of a magnetic reversal. And not only is our sun in the midst of a magnetic reversal, but the center of the galaxy is also in the midst of a galactic reversal.
We come to active galactic nuclei and find something never seen before. While we focus on the galactic magnetic field reversal in the current sheet of the midplane, several NASA scientists and top astronomers across the world have determined that galaxies can actually have full system magnetic reversals too. Just like we see with the current sheet solar wind magnetic reversal every 5 to 10 days, but where the sun itself reverses its full system magnetic field every 11 years, what we're talking about here is not the galactic current sheet, but a nuclear magnetic flux inversion event, or magnetic reversal. North becomes south, field flows reverse, supreme flare event in the middle of the shift. Folks, there is nothing about the galactic magnetic system we study that isn't scaled up from the sun, other stars, and magnetic systems in general.
It's as if the Father is cleaning house, and he has these seasons of house cleaning set up in the world, in the earth, where cyclically, about every 12,000, 6,000, 3,000, 1,500 years, there's some sort of cleansing that the earth goes through to get rid of that which has passed its expiration date and to renew the earth. Well, the next renewal and the end of this age is at hand. And if you're a student of history, you'll know that ages tend to end catastrophically.
While Earth's magnetic pole shift doesn't exactly make the mainstream news headlines, it's not exactly a state secret either. For more than a decade now, scientists have been publishing evidence that Earth's magnetic poles are in the process of reversing. In 2003, the public got a huge leap in learning as NASA published their foundation article on how Earth was changing in this way. They plotted every position of the North Magnetic Pole over the last 175 years, and we can see that the 1831 to 1904 pole migration during the first 73 years was fairly normal, but that it was followed by a much larger jump over just 68 years and then jumped that same distance in only 29 years. The pole had been moving slowly for hundreds of years, seen in purple, pink, and red. But then the 1900s come along, and we go orange into yellow and green. The North Pole has certainly begun to shift, and while the South Magnetic Pole is moving more slowly, it is definitively shifting too, and has now left the continent of Antarctica, coming up in the southeastern Indian Ocean. Now the North Pole's position was not easily discernible on the Mercator map, so we'll switch to the Arctic view, zooming in so we can see that the North is breezing by the actual geographic pole as it speeds up towards Siberia. Please notice that the distance jumps get smaller there at the end. Also notice that those are predictions rather than actual readings. And the past 3 updates to these databases have all predicted that slowdown incorrectly. So let's not allow that apparent slowdown to fool us this time. The poles are shifting faster and faster. Part of Earth's magnetic system is the magnetosphere, Earth's magnetic shield. As if the shifting poles were not enough, we notice a progressive weakening of our shield similar to the pole shift. It's weakening faster and faster and faster. As of the year 2000 update, our field had lost 10% of the strength it enjoyed before the magnetic poles began to shift. And since then, we have noted further weakening, large breaches in Earth's magnetosphere, and then more weakening. In fact, as of late 2010 or early 2011, Earth's magnetism was down 15%. That is not exactly a great trend you want to see, and it continued with the 2015 data as well. As these poles continue advancing, the swarm taught us that the trend of magnetic field weakening is continuing as well. So where are we now here in 2015? 17%? 20%? More? While we're talking, not only are the magnetic poles shifting faster and faster, but Earth's magnetic field is fading faster and faster. The end result of magnetic reversals is not such a happy tale for our planet. Our magnetic field protects us from the sun, which would strip our planet's atmosphere without the protection. The greatest danger that solar eruptions pose to Earth is electrical. The sun can surge so much energy into the Earth that transformers and grids could be destroyed. We could be without electricity for years. This footage comes from the video How to Watch the Sun. The short version of the story we tell there is that the sun can send us back to the Stone Age, and that weakening magnetic shield is what stops it from happening and stops solar plasma from breaching Earth's protective layers and destroying the ozone and upper atmosphere. Extinction is certainly a possibility with magnetic reversals.
Many of the extinction level events that have taken place over the history of this Earth have come as a result of magnetic pole reversals. As I stated earlier, it's as if the Most High placed a feedback mechanism within creation to cleanse itself periodically. Noah's flood. The creation story in Genesis chapter 1 was a recreation. The earth was covered with water, and the Ruach, the Spirit of the Most High, moved upon the waters, and he said, "Let there be light." There was darkness, and there was water. There had been some sort of cataclysm, some sort of judgment, and the Most High was now recreating the earth. And that is why he told Adam, and Eve, Yahuah, to replenish the earth. Replenish. So these cyclical patterns of judgment have come and they have gone. And now we have arrived at a major cycle of cleansing the earth, where we will see the end of an age come. The geomagnetic field of the earth is shifting. The magnetic field of the earth is weakening. The magnetic field of the sun is weakening and shifting. The galactic center is shifting. There's so much happening in the world right now. There are major forces at play to bring about major catastrophes upon the earth. And these things are at hand. I stated before that the whole earth and the whole world is based upon the principle of electromagnetism. We see the electromagnetic structure within the sun and the moon and the stars at play here and at work as the Most High brings about his judgment. And what's coming from the center of where the Most High has established his stars is some sort of wave. I'm not a scientist and I don't pretend to be one, but there is a wave, a galactic wave, an electromagnetic wave that's coming from the center of the galaxy that contains gas, dust, plasma, charged particles. And when it comes in contact with the sun in an already weakened state, it will cause the sun to go dark. And when the sun goes dark and ignites again, there will be a major flash, and it will bring about a major earthquake, and it will rain down hailstones, meteorites, asteroids that may be in its path. These things that are coming correspond with the judgments of the trumpets, the bowls, and/or the vials. And as we continue this lesson, I will make parallels between the science of what is coming, and I will compare and contrast it with what the scripture says is coming, so that we can have a clear understanding of what the Father is communicating to us in the scriptures. For the time of these things is at hand.
Earth enjoys long, quiet eras commanded by the slow grind of wind, rain, and geology. These periods are punctuated by a recurring catastrophe. We're coming to the end of one of these calm periods, and a disaster is coming. By combining millennia of evidence, centuries of study, and the modern capabilities of technology, we can answer the challenge to explain all the evidence of Earth's disaster cycle, and we have all the tools to track the next one. We're going to lay out the order of events we most expect to happen and offer our best constrained timelines for each. Before any of you were born, the leading edge of the galactic current sheet arrived at our solar system. It began what will finally present a 10% change in interstellar density and the galactic magnetic reversal. The Sun announced the arrival with a superflare. Early solar scientists tied a massive sunspot group to a geomagnetic disaster unheard of at the time. In 1859, the Virgin Electric Age was razed, literally, to the ground, as the Carrington Event solar storm surged electric current through the planet that would not only set telegraph wires on fire, but would induce the beginning of the modern magnetic excursion of Earth. The Earth's field began shifting, the climate began warming, the magnetic field began weakening, the poles shifting faster and faster. It would be 2020 before we learned that the Sun's coronal magnetic fields were reacting, and the chemistry of its atmosphere was beginning to change, most notably in the helium. Thus far, the changes we see from the ground are more due to Earth's changing magnetic field and its effect on the upper atmospheric lens through which we view the Sun, such that the once yellow Sun now looks more white at greater and greater angles of the day, from 1859 to today. And the big question is, what happens next? The most likely answer is that a significant solar flare, perhaps not even as great as the Carrington event, will impact Earth in the coming years as our planet's magnetic field continues to weaken, and will be enough to destroy the electrical age once and for all. A big enough solar storm means every copper wire melts, every grid is gone, many buildings burn down, there is no power, gasoline, ATMs, banks, grocery, refrigeration, natural gas, heat, AC, no water unless you have a manual well, no factories to rebuild, no vehicles to transport, no 911. With Earth's field weakening, this is by far the most likely candidate to begin the next level series of challenges.
Most of us will be in the same state as many of the creatures who depend on the field, completely lost, lucky to get where we need to go. This period could last for years. If the sunspot cycle delivers that blast to Earth, we could have a decade of surviving something between the Stone Age and the Bronze Age. But then one day, as the survivors are getting into a groove, those chemical changes on the sun will begin to manifest through to the visible wavelengths as the second horseman arrives, and the civility of all who are left is challenged, if not outright stolen. This will test people's will, their character, and their faith. When the sun's atmosphere completely darkens, the upper corona and the sun's version of the Van Allen belts will be the only thing shining. Then, when the light and solar wind energy overcomes its shell, through the dust and gas and plasma of the long-period recurrent solar micronova, we will find the final horseman in a familiar pale hue. The blast itself creates a titanic outburst of light across the spectrum, and cosmic rays following right on their heels. The light arrives in 8 minutes, but has the potential to burn the sun-facing region directly looking at the sun at that time. The high-energy proton cosmic ray storm that ensues will be an invisible component of the disaster, as if anyone could take their eyes away from what would be coming right at us at that time. These cosmic rays integrate with the Earth's magnetic field, and may begin the turning over of the Earth via the full planet electromagnetic insult. But before long, the actual shell arrives, and it arrives with the smallest and most energetic parts impacting first, a mega CME shockwave that compresses the Earth's sun-facing fields while surging them, creating the arc discharge others call the thunderbolt of the gods. There should also be a discharge out the other side, and perhaps the poles as well. This is more than just a planetary-level lightning strike and discharge. It sucks the water where it wishes, and triggers incredible tsunamis from that effect, pressurized parts of the world, sucking down stratospheric air, instantly freezing the surface, while frozen waters and glaciers and mountains of ice chunks from the modern poles could be cascading from their places into those same areas. The wind will enhance the tsunamis and storms, and all while something even more horrifying is happening below our feet. The volcanoes will begin to go off as the electromagnetic insult unlocks the low-velocity zone, induces through the large, low-shear velocity provinces, and triggers the kick of Earth's magnetic field through its reversal process, and as the world sways like a drunkard, tilting as Einstein, Cuvier, DeLuc, and, according to Major White, how the Pentagon and US CIA believe it will tilt, 90 degrees, back and forth each cycle, alternating to put the poles cyclically in the same places, but in between, in the transition, a disaster. As the tsunamis are rolling and the Earth is tilting, the heaviest aspects of the micronova shell arrive, the impactors. Some are asteroids pushed out of normal orbits, some are plasmic forms, cooled and congealed from the micronova shell itself as it travels through space. The sun has been hidden from Earth this entire time since the micronova eruption, and even after it begins to shine on us again, the dust from the nova, the volcanic aerosols, and the water vapor produced by the event will cloud out Earth's atmosphere and continue to rapidly cool the planet. The sun will be flaring at very intense levels at this time due to the micronova shell release effect on the corona and the photosphere. Let's see that story again in list form, and go over the timelines of each of these events in order as we most expect them to happen. Right now, we are in that first stage as we described it. The galactic sheet front boundary triggered the 1859 solar storm and the beginning of the magnetic excursion at Earth. We know today that the nearby stars, planets, and the sun are changing with us. The next up event is likely to be the solar kill shot, the technological disaster that steals our modern society from us, sending us back into survival mode. That is a very real chance of being this sunspot cycle in just the coming years. We had a number of close calls last sunspot cycle, and the field is not getting any stronger. After there aren't any electric screens to watch anymore, we'll be watching the weather and the animals change, and with it, the solar changes begin to manifest at those visible scary levels, the reddening and the full darkening, progressing to these stages likely in the 2030s. The solar micronova itself is next, blasting off the shell, darkening the sun, and bringing as drastic a change as the solar kill shot, and more. Until we see how it progresses, the timelines here are difficult, but it's fair to assume that Earth's weakening field is a fair approximation, and that one points to the 2030s to 2040s for the reversal point. When the micronova happens, the cosmic rays begin, the sun-facing quarter burns, and a few hours later, the shell impact occurs at Earth, delivering the arc discharge, the winds, the depressurization and rapid freeze, the tsunamis, earthquakes, and all while within just minutes, the induction is producing that electromagnetic insult to the core. The Earth turns over, bringing more tsunamis, quakes, and volcanoes. The cold sets in deeply thereafter, almost immediately in a days-long global night. But outgassing and solar flaring quickly begin to reverse the process. There will be melt-driven flooding, crustal settling quakes and tsunamis and volcanoes, and more extreme climate and weather swings than we see now. But it will pale in comparison to what the previous years have brought them, and especially the previous few days. Every one of us is descended from survivors, who are descended from survivors before them, and survivors before them.
The catastrophes, disasters, and cataclysms outlined in this video are closely and directly aligned with the prophecies that have been stated in the book of Revelation. They are the trumpet judgments, the bowl and or vial judgments. These things have been written, they have been predetermined, they are cyclical, and here we find ourselves at the end of this current age where these things have already begun to manifest. In the video that we just watched, you heard Ben Davidson lay out a timeline based on a secular point of view. In no way am I in agreement with his timeline of when events happen in terms of the 2030s or the 2040s. I have no way of knowing that, and really, neither does he. His estimate are guesses, educated guesses, but guesses nonetheless. The Father determines the times and the seasons, and these things could take place in 5 years, they could take place in 50 years, they could take place in 100 years. We just don't know. The time between the trumpets and the bowls are determined by the Most High. It could be long durations in between the times, or it could be of short duration. We just don't know. So the timing is not in our hands. We know that these things will take place, and the way that he has described them is once again an educated guess. I believe he is on target with a lot of things, but there are things that he has not touched on. He has not touched on the opening of the abyss and all of the horror that comes from that. And he wouldn't know to do that because he is not looking at this from a spiritual perspective, only from an astronomical perspective. So as I discuss these things in our future lessons, I will be including the spiritual perspective being added to this astronomical or scientific perspective so that we can arrive at a well-rounded picture of these things as the Most High leads and guides and instructs us. What is next on the timeline? A flash of light. A flash of light, a major solar flare that brings a major worldwide earthquake. And then the horses ride. The same horses that rode against our people over the generations will ride against the inhabitants of the earth. Famine, conquering, war, and death. The 4 horsemen are about to ride against the enemies of the Most High Yahuah. So as you consider the things outlined in this video, I pray that you will seek the Father, seek for clarity, and ask how you should be preparing physically, certainly, but more importantly, spiritually. Those who are under the shadow of his almighty wing, though the catastrophes come, they will be safe. They will be hidden and they will be saved. Shalom and shalom.